Republican Congressman Trent Franks of Arizona is the third member of Congress to announce his resignation amid allegations of misconduct just this week. In a statement, Franks said that he never attempted to have sexual contact with any staffer, never touched anybody in his office, or tried to. But he admitted to having, quote, an uncomfortable conversation about surrogacy with two women who worked for him. The congressman was pushed to resign by the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Rebecca Heinrichs was once an advisor to Congressman Franks, and she joins us now to help clear up this story. So from what you know, Rebecca, what exactly are the charges, not formal charges, what are the allegations that are causing Mr. Franks to resign?
The allegations are that Congressman Franks approached two staffers individually about the subject of surrogacy in his office. He talked about surrogacy. He and his wife have fertility problems, and so he had uncomfortable conversations. According to him, he asked them if they would ever consider being a surrogate. He never, according to him, put the question to them if they would be surrogates for him. It's an awkward conversation. It could make somebody feel uncomfortable. But to me, that certainly doesn't rise to the level of sexual harassment or some sort of sexual abuse. But that's what the claim is, and that's what he says. I worked for the congressman. I have remained in touch with him. We've worked on policy issues because I continue to do policy with think tanks. And I have never been made to feel uncomfortable being with the congressman. I have never seen any slightest bit of sexual harassment or intimidation. He has treated every single member that I've seen of his staff with dignity and respect. So this is incredibly startling to me, and frankly, I find it a tragedy. I find it a tragedy that he's feeling like he needs to resign over what we know about the allegations.
Well, he's being pushed to resign by Paul Ryan, apparently. Have you spoken to him since?
I have not.
So assuming, and this is a big assumption, but this is all there is to know, and sometimes there's more that we don't know, but this is what we do know. On the basis of this, do you think these are appropriate grounds for resignation?
Absolutely not. You know, when you're a member of Congress, you're going to be working with staff on very difficult issues of policy. Right. Congressman Franks, he is one of the most well-known pro-life members, and so he cares very, very deeply about the dignity of life. He was going through something incredibly hard. He was thinking through it ethically about surrogacy, and he was trying to go about it in a way that honored life of what would be his unborn child. And so he had an uncomfortable conversation. Is it weird? Yeah, I think it's weird. Might it make somebody uncomfortable? Sure. Should she have left? Yes, I hope she did. But are those grounds now for accusing the congressman of something so severe, you know, especially in this just whirlwind of accusations of legitimate sexual abuse? It's sort of lumping him, you know, with folks like Congressman Conyers, where there's a whole, you know, slew of women who are making very serious allegations. So it's troubling. It's very troubling as his former staff and as somebody who continues to work with the congressman.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, Congressman John Conyers is not the only casualty of the recent stream of sexual harassment allegations. In an awesomely Washingtonian resignation announcement, disgraced Senator Al Franken of Minnesota called himself, quote, a champion of women, also lashed out at his political rivals, did not apologize once to anyone who accused him. Is the outrage over sexual harassment based on a genuine concern for the victims, or is something very cynical going on here? Philippe Reines served in Hillary Clinton's inner circle for many years. He was not impressed by New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand denouncing Bill Clinton the other day, and he joins us to assess everything that has happened. Philippe, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
So, look, I'm not exactly sure what I think of everything around Senator Franken. I didn't like him as a senator. But I do know that a lot of the people denouncing him, particularly Senator Gillibrand of New York, are hypocrites. You made this point that she's a hypocrite. What was the response when you said that?
Well, let me preface this before getting into the politics of it, that obviously this behavior, whether it's Senator Franken or candidate Moore or Congressman Franks, Conyers, this has to be taken very seriously. When true, it's inappropriate and abhorrent.
I agree.
With Senator Gillibrand, the point I was making, and I think continue to make, is she's not putting in context her rationale for who she calls for resignation and when. She, 2 weeks ago, called for Bill Clinton's resignation, or saying Bill Clinton should have resigned 2 decades ago. Didn't really explain why. She didn't say she regretted not speaking earlier or regret taking the Clintons' support or money, and then goes a few weeks without saying anything about Senator Franken, until yesterday. Now, that's not to say her decision is wrong. She was joined by 29 other senators. But most people have been discussing this within a framework of, if someone does this, it's unacceptable and they should resign. It's unclear in the way she's been describing her actions what that rationale is.
I agree. And I'm also bothered. Look, if one of your colleagues exhibits poor judgment or does something grotesque or indefensible, attack him. I get it. But when you call yourself a defender of all women under all circumstances, you had better defend all women under all circumstances. Earlier this year, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was an activist against female genital mutilation, went up to the Senate and testified before a committee. She later wrote a piece in the New York Times describing how the female Democrats on that committee basically blew her off, ignored her, didn't ask a single question, were in effect hostile to her. I don't understand how, and they are specifically Heidi Heitkamp, Senator Harris of California, McCaskill of Missouri, Hassan of New Hampshire. How can you call yourself a defender of all women when you can't stand up against female genital mutilation? I'm confused by the inconsistency there.
Well, I'm not familiar with that event, but I will say you can't just say that all the women of the Senate, whether they're Republican or Democrat, are not attuned to allegations and concerns of women. That would be absurd to say. How they reacted in that case, I don't know. I don't know why, but I think what we're seeing now is everyone feeling around where exactly and how exactly to deal with these accusations.
Right.
You have Senator Franken. You showed a clip of what he was saying, and he's getting a lot of grief because he said, I'm resigning, but. And I think as much criticism as he's getting, it's showing the concern, and certainly among Democrats, about the hypocrisy. And he said it himself. I'm resigning. A month from now, Roy Moore is going to be taking my office. I'm resigning, but Donald Trump is still president. And there's no reckoning across the board. There's no standard being crossed the board.
Here's the standard. Look, we make a mistake when we assume that all abuse or harassment is sexual in nature. You can mistreat the women in your office without hitting on them or taking your clothes off in front of them. And I'm wondering if you think that all these senators who are attacking Franken, how many of them have like thrown a stapler at a woman in their office or screamed at their female subordinates? I think that happens.
Man.
Or man. No, I'm just saying, like, if you hold yourself
up. It's not okay to throw a stapler at anybody.
It's certainly not. And yet that kind of behavior is very common up there. It's not sexual harassment. It's every bit as bad.
Look, the Congress, in a lot of ways, is not a typical work environment. Obviously, that has to change. What we've been seeing in the media, in finance, and other places, when someone has an accusation, they are looked into and quickly dismissed. The House, the Senate has got to, but it's a problem because, again, if you're Al Franken, you're like, what's going on here?
I agree.
And the problem is that the White House, to answer this, says, well, Donald Trump was elected, therefore it's over.
But that's
actually not true.
That's why congressional staff ought to be unionized. You're for unions, Democratic Party. You know, there ought to be a staffers union on the Democratic side.
I worked on the Hill for a dozen years, and if anyone threw a stapler at me, I would have been the norm array of no staplers.
Talk to the shop steward. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you for having me, Tucker.